Okay. So, Oma Gyana Taminandasya, Gyananjana Shalakaya, Chakshunamitamina, Tasmai Shri Gurube Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam, Stapitamina Bhutale, Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Okay, so we're continuing our study of Bhagavad-Gita chapter 5. In the previous section, Arjuna was inquiring about which path is greater, the path of karma yoga or the path of karma sannyas. So karma yoga involves engagement in the world, and karma sannyas involves renunciation in the world. And externally, they look like two different paths. Well, they are two different paths. And so Arjuna, Krishna has spoken about both these paths rather neutrally in the previous sections. So Arjuna wanted to know definitively if one path should be esteemed above another. So he asked Krishna that in the beginning of the chapter. And Krishna first informs Arjuna that both paths are really one because they have one objective, namely self-realization and liberation from the material world. And so although they're two forms of practice, they have the same aim, and in essence, they were actually just one with two different manifestations. Although that is the case, Krishna favors karma yoga path above the renunciation of the world or work because it's safer. Many people are not able to live a life of renunciation for long term, just like you see in our ashrams all over the world. We always used to joke like this. If you go somewhere for a month and come back, things are completely different. You're like, where's so-and-so? Where's so-and-so? They love something happened. It is not easy to remain in a renounced position for long, especially in the age of Kali. It's safer to do a path that allows you to engage in the world with spiritual focus. It is also easier because it allows for engagement of the senses with the objects with discernment. Whereas in the path of renunciation, you have to externally restrain your senses from their objects to be considered authentic in that path. So it is easier and it is safer. And also the karma yogi, he is loved by everyone because he engages in the world in a way that is devoid of an exploitative tendency. The karma sannyasi also lives like that, but he is not generally seen in the world. He has renounced the world. So the karma yogi is also engaged. So for these various reasons, Krishna has esteemed the path of karma yoga above renunciation. And he's referred to the karma yogi as a nitya sannyasi. He is always a sannyasi. So although he's engaged in the world, he is actually renounced because he engages with the world dispassionately. When we engage with the world, we're very passionate. We want to fulfill desires and we want to avoid distress. When desires are fulfilled, we become happy. And when desires are not fulfilled, we become distressed. And this way our mind is always going round and round like this. But this karma yogi, he engages in the world without any interest to exploit it or any interest to avoid disturbance also. So although engaged in the world, he is actually dispassionate. He is not trying to enjoy the world. We discussed this previously. When we engage in the world, we want to enjoy it. In order to enjoy, you have to control. That is the only way you can really enjoy. You cannot enjoy something that is out of your control. Actually, something's out of your control is quite scary. So you can only really enjoy if you can get control over it. So you see that and to get control, you need power. So you see human nature and material life is really usually focused on power. People want more. And whether they get power by money or they get power by aristocracy, some high position, or they get power by building a big gang around them or personality cult, whatever tactics, or people get power nowadays by playing the victim card, poor me, and that way they gather sympathy for gaining power. So you see that this is the tendency for power. Why power? So I can control. And why you want to control? So I can enjoy. So the karma yogi is not like this. He's also engaged in the world like these conditioned persons, but dispassionately. So in this section, verses 8 through 15, Krishna speaks about the knowledge of such a person. As he spoke about this earlier in chapter 3, also spoke about the karma yogi, and then he speaks about his inner wisdom. So in verses 8 through 15, we're hearing about the inner wisdom of this nitya sannyasi, this person who's always renounced. What is that inner wisdom that allows him to exist in such a detached manner? Because you have to be profoundly renounced to, profoundly steeped in wisdom to exist in such a renounced manner, although engaged in the world. Usually the strategy is out of sight, out of mind. And I always give the example of cheesecake because it's a safe example. We can give other examples that are a little bit more naughty, but we have children in the house and we're from the deities. So cheesecake is a good example. You like cheesecake? So there's two options. There's two ways you can be associated with cheesecake. The cheesecake is around you, but you are detached from it. Even though you like cheesecake, but you're not disturbed. Or the cheesecake isn't there at all, so that you don't even have to think about it. So if the cheesecake is around you and you really like cheesecake, do you think you can resist eating it? Abhinav. Kind of, really. You're so renounced. If the cheesecake is sitting right there all day, and you like cheesecake also, you just say you like cheesecake. You think you can resist eating it? It'd be very hard, right? So a real renunciate is like this, that even the objects are around him, but he is not disturbed by them. That's pretty powerful. So in verses 8 through 15, Krishna wants to elaborate on that inner wisdom of such a yogi that allows him to exist around the objects of this world, which are very alluring in such a dispassionate manner, which is not a very easy thing to do. You can talk about it all you want, but it's not very, just like people will talk about using the technology for good. They have many of these seminars, technology, bane or boon, these sort of presentations. And everyone makes this, especially spiritual people, especially in our communities, we like to make it. It's not good or bad. It's just how you use it. Just like a knife, it's not good or bad. A knife in the hands of a surgeon, saves lives, and a knife in the hand of a criminal kills lives. So it's not the knife; it's just how you use it. And that seems like a very compelling sort of argument. Like, yeah, that makes sense. So the question is, well, how are you using it? You could say like that, and it sounds very nice, and it's a nice process of rationalization we may take. But then the question comes, how are you actually using that object? Then are you using it like a surgeon, or are you using it like a criminal? And just like the cell phones or the computers, our devotees say, well, it can be used for Krishna service. It's like, that's true. It can be used for Krishna service. My question is, what is it actually being used for? Are you using it for Krishna service, or are you using it for some other purpose? And usually it's the latter case. So it is easy to talk about detachment all around. I've heard people say this also. Well, New York is just a great place for spirituality because it really tests how deeply spiritual you are. And I'm like, I don't need any tests. I already know. it's a problem. I ain't that spiritual. But people like to rationalize in this way that I can live in this city and test my spiritual. But generally, we're not so spiritual. So you can say like this, but when it comes to actually living in that way, very difficult. You have to have some profound level of wisdom to actually exist in the world around alluring objects and not be affected by them. You can only just think of it, how profound your wisdom would have to be. Also, Srila Prabhupada was once noted for saying he was interviewed by a reporter. And the reporter was asking why he was sitting on one fancy seat. We call Vyasa-san, fancy seat. So Prabhupada was asked, why are you sitting on this fancy seat? Because you were just a normal man. People used to get really pinched by that seat. If you watch for Prabhupada members and so on, many times they would get pinched to see Prabhupada sitting on that opulent seat and all the disciples sitting beneath him and honoring him. That envy just pops up because you want to be honored like that, and no one cares about you. So once he was asked this in an interview, and Prabhupada said to the reporter at that time, the difference between you and me is that I can be in a room full of naked women and be undisturbed, and you cannot. And the reporters, like friends, started laughing. It was like true. So you could talk about that being renounced by the objects around you, but how can you practically live like that? Your wisdom would have to be pretty immovable, so that the objects just kind of merge into the ocean of your wisdom. That's the Apurnamanam Achala Pratishtam Samudramapa Pravishanti Yatva. Krishna speaks about this in the Gita, of how the sense objects or sensual desires just merge into the ocean of wisdom of the enlightened person. And that doesn't happen to us. When desires come in, they overflood the thing, and we become bewildered. But for the enlightened person, his knowledge is compared to an ocean, and these desires are compared to rivers that just merge into the ocean and like dissipate. So you have to have pretty. So now we're hearing about the profound wisdom. So this is verse number 8. We'll try to cover the verses quickly. So verse 8 and 9, 2 verses are taken together. Naivam kinchen koromiti yukto manyita tatvit pashan shrenvan sprishan jegran ashnan gachan swapna shvasan pralapan rishidran grednan unmirsham nimishanapi indriyarte shru vartanta iti dhare. This is a translation. So a person in divine consciousness, and the word Krishna uses for divine consciousness is tattvavit in context. So this is a kind of an important word. The word tattvavit refers to, vit means a knower. Someone who is a knower of the tattva. They're a knower of the actual reality. As opposed to the unreality which we're at presently preoccupied with. They actually know the true reality of the situation. They're called as tattvavit. And this term is we first saw this term in Bhagavad-Gita chapter 3, verse 28. And these verses that we're hearing now are kind of an expansion on that particular verse and section in the Gita. So a person in divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving, about, sleeping, and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving, or opening or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects and that he is aloof from them. So just to break this down in a really simple way to try to understand it, I don't know if I should have angled this properly for my little camera thing. I won't be able to see my drawing, which has profound meanings and inspirations. So the Tattvavit basically knows there's in this world, there's basically 2 categories of, let's say, existences. The soul category, that's one ontological category, and then the material nature, we'll just put the word nature, that is another category. They're in two distinct ontological categories. They don't really mix with each other. So in nature, you have the senses, and the senses are basically 2 categories of senses: the knowledge acquiring senses and the working senses. So the senses by which we acquire knowledge are the eyes and the ears and the nose and the tongue and the skin, right? You understand? Yes, tongue. So eyes, ears, nose for smelling. What else? Skin and tongue for tasting. These are called the knowledge acquiring senses. That's where you bring in information from the material world through these senses. And then you have your working senses by which you pursue the world. Voice, hands, legs. There's no really nice way of saying this. I try to think of other words, but anus and genitals. It always seems a little weird saying that in a spiritual class, but whatever. So these are the working senses by which you pursue the material world. So these are all part of the material category. And also the objects for the senses. Where are the objects for the senses? For eyes, it is form. For ears, it is sound. For the nose, it is smell. For the skin, it's touch. Yeah, feeling, touch, feeling. And for the tongue, taste. So these are the sense objects. So these are all part of one category, and the soul is existing over here in another category. So the Tattvavit, when he does not consider himself to be a doer of activities, because the soul is actually existing in this category, and what's doing all the activity is existing in this category. So in that sense, he doesn't feel himself to be a doer. If you go to 328, he uses the language, Krishna uses the language there. The Tattvavit just says that gunas are interacting with gunas, because the material world is understood to be the product of gunas. And all these things are themselves a product of gunas. So it's just gunas interacting with gunas. That's all that's happening in the material energy. And he sees that the self is ontologically different from that. So in this sense, he sees himself as a non-doer, although so many activities are going on. That is his perception of the reality. You can just imagine, just like someone comes and glorifies such a person. You are amazing. You're wonderful. And he thinks, gunas are interacting with gunas. I always say, if you were to meet a Gyani who was like really steeped in this sort of Gyan, you couldn't really glorify him. You would be like annoyed. You glorify him. You're so wonderful. And he's just like looking. You're amazing. That was a great class or something. He's just like looking like whatever. I'm like, what's your, then you start speculating about them. They puffed up. They think they're better than everyone. The mind just does an about face. So then when it does an about face and starts criticizing the person, he also thinks the same thing. Oh, just gunas interacting with gunas. He just completely, this is not a devotee's consciousness necessarily, which is a little bit different. Although this is the ground of even a devotional awareness, but the devotee has extra qualities because of the soft nature of bhakti. That is a different thing. But the basic enlightenment is like that. He said gunas interacting with gunas. So in the same way, Krishna is saying here, the Tattvavit just sees that the senses are interacting with their sense objects. And the soul really does nothing at all because he's existing in another category. Of course, in order for the senses to interact with the sense objects, there has to be some influence of the soul there. Otherwise, it can do nothing whatsoever. When the body does not have a soul in it, then the body doesn't move, it doesn't see, and so on. So there's some influence of the soul just by proximity. But this learned person understands that the self is actually existing in another category. And therefore, he does not consider himself the doer. Once you consider yourself an agent of activities, then you become preoccupied with the results. And being the result, basically, the main result being you want to enjoy. And once you become preoccupied with that result, then you want to control, and then you want power. So you can control, so you can enjoy. So that's the nature of that's the nature of being an agent in this world. So he's like, he lets that go. I'm not really this person that you see with the material eye. He's not invested in the story of this body and mind like we are. If you think of it, it's just like watching a movie and you get invested in the main character and you're really rooting for them. Just like Game of Thrones, it's a very popular show, and I happen to see some episodes also. Very nice show, maybe for material senses. And you become invested in one of the characters. And you're like really rooting for their relationships and for them to conquer over the enemy. And then investing in that storyline, you forget about your life for the 1 hour of the show. And usually after the 1 hour is over, you lose a lot more of your life thinking about what's going to happen in the next episode. You're thinking about it for the whole week, speculating what's going to happen in the next episode and so on. So you become so invested in the character that you lose your own self while you're absorbed in that storyline, so to speak, that narrative. So in a similar way, this body is actually belonging to nature, and we're different. But the soul becomes invested in the story of another, that other being our present body. And we get so infatuated with our own story. And we're rooting for the character. Like, I'm rooting for me, for sure. I want to be successful. I want to be liked. I want to be popular. Whatever. Huh?
You're doing great.
Thanks. So like, yeah, for sure. Just you got. So you get invested in but this body is really the story of another. Myself is different from that story. But becoming so invested in the story of another, I lose my actual self, awareness of my actual true nature. So the Tattva is not like that. He recognizes his body really as a story of another. And he's that other, this body is interacting with others in this whole narrative. But he does not lose himself in those storylines. He's aware of the storyline, but he's also ever aware of his own true nature. And he never becomes lost in the story of this other, this entity, which we become so invested in. Such as his knowledge of the reality. He's very fixed on that. It's like having a lucid dream, if you've ever experienced that. I've only experienced it a few times. But I used to have these nightmares where you're like falling from the top of a building, and it's like really scary. And then sometimes I would have the experience of knowing that I was dreaming. And when I would be falling from the top of a building, it wouldn't be scary at all, because I knew that my actual reality was different from this dream world, and I was safe. And so although I'd be falling, I would just be like, whatever. I'm going to go splat and I'll wake up. Sometimes that would happen in the lucid dreams. So this Tattva person is like a person having a lucid dream in one sense. He's ever aware of his true position, different from this body, different from the story of this body. He never gets lost in that narrative, which again, that's pretty powerful, because unlike watching a movie, it's much easier to get lost in this narrative because we're so close to it. Especially the emotions, and we really get lost in that narrative. The Tattva person is not like that. His inner wisdom is fixed. So Krishna is mentioning that. Yes, Brian, you want to ask something?
Krishna?
Well, fixed on his true nature. In context, Krishna is talking about being fixed on the true nature of the self.
Yeah.
Yes, all the time.
Yeah.
Moment to moment.
Right. So rather than getting caught up in witnessing the gunas, interacting with gunas,
right.
Fixating your attention on Krishna.
Yes, ultimately for devotees, we like to fix our attention on Krishna. And in context, he's just being aware of his own true nature. Of course, again, you can say gunas, being fixed on gunas, but I also like to put it in more accessible language. You're preoccupied with your own story as Brian, and you're rooting for yourself. You're the hero of your story, and you want success and you want victory for Brian. And that is okay. That's the conventional world to some degree. But if you get so preoccupied in that story that you lose awareness of your true nature, is different from that. And your whole life becomes about the success of this temporary body, then you're lost into samsara, to the material energy. So the Tattva, that never happens for him. His enlightenment is so profound. You understand? This is this state is quite hard to imagine, actually. And this is supposed to be like basic. Sometimes people are talking about Bhagavad-Gita is basic. I'm like, yo, that's basic. I use a little bit more basic in my life. Such a realization is not easy to come by. So the next verse, this is elaborated on a little bit more. This is 5:10. Brahmanya dhaya karmani sangam tattva karotiyah. Lipyate nasapapena padma patrami vambasa. Very nice verse. So one who performs his duty without attachment. Sangang tattva. Oh, you remember that term? Sangang tattva karotiyah. One who performs his action, his duty. Sangam tattva. Remember, this phrase came up quite a bit. You remember this phrase?
From last class?
It came up in Gita, chapter 3 mostly. We were hearing this phrase. Sangam tattva. Tattva means to give up. And sangha means association. But the word sangam also means attachment. So sangam tattva, he gives up attachment to two things. Attachment to the fruit of the activity, which is enjoyment. Right? That's the fruit that we're looking for. That nice, sweet fruit of enjoyment. Enjoy. And he gives up the sense of being an agent in this world. Because he sees that's just the Buddha's interacting with Buddha, just the body interacting with sense objects. So Sangam Tattva. How does he do that? Brahmanya Dhaya Karmani. All activities, he kind of co-signs to Brahman. And the word Brahman here, the word Brahmani here means the material energy. Later on in Bhagavad-Gita chapter 10, verse 4, Krishna calls this material world the Mahat Brahman. So the word Brahman is a word that is normally used to describe the spiritual plane. But sometimes the souls are also referred to Brahman, because they are a particular potency of Brahman. And the material nature is also sometimes referred to Brahman because it is another type of potency of Brahman. So in Gita, you'll see Krishna refer to the material nature also sometimes as Brahman. So here he gives up the sense of agency and the sense of the wanting the fruit because he consigns all these activities of the body to Brahman. They're all part of this nature, not part of my nature. They're part of he just in his mind he thinks this is part of nature, not a part of my own inherent existence. So lipyate nasa papena. So he is never affected by papena. Papena means sin. And the commentators say here the word sin refers to all the effects of activity in this world. Sometimes you do pious activity, you get a pious result. If you do virtuous activity, you get a nice result. If you do vicious activities, you get a not nice result. So all of this is considered within the realm of papena, sin. So he's not affected by the results of vice and virtue. An example of the result of virtue or pious activities, you get like lots of money, get that raise, you cute, you were born in some nice family of aristocracy, you're educated. These are apparently considered the fruits of virtuous activities done in the past. And it's very intoxicating. Like when you think you're cute, it's very intoxicating. And all I have to do to get evidence for that is go to your Instagram. That you think you're cute, right? It's if you're beautiful and you know it, you're in trouble for sure. Or maybe you don't always think you're cute, but you're like, I'm looking cute today. And you take your little pictures. And it's very intoxicating. If you get money, it's very intoxicating. Especially for a monk like me, I've lived decently renounced for almost half of my life. Lived in an ashram, not making much money happily. But every time you get a little bit of extra money, you get really excited. Like, man, I'm about to get some ice cream with this. That's like the extent of your desires, you know. Or sometimes you get a little bit more. Man, I could get some really nice Bluetooth headphones with this, and you start to go a little crazy. These are considered the fruits of piety. You become affected by piety. And it's often seen that people who have what's normally considered the results of piety, they also degrade very fast, not knowing how to deal with that piety. You see persons with like lots and lots of money, leaders of countries and so on. How degraded they become because of their wealth and the power that it gives them. And similarly, there are the results of vicious activity. You're suffering some negative results. For example, you may be you ugly. That's also, that comes up, and that's not a politically correct thing to say, but that's the duality of the material world. There's beautiful and there's ugly. That's how duality works. There's hot, there's cold, there's rich, there's poor. It's just a world of duality. So you may be more ugly, and that's considered suffering. You may feel that you may get teased in school for that. I was born, I remember my mom first started twisting our hair for dreadlocks. Before dreadlocks were like a fashion statement. I was 9 years old. It was brutal. I'm still scarred from that. I think I'm permanently scarred from it. The kids are like, they're brutal, boy. I think between 6th grade and 8th grade, they're the most evil. Like, I wouldn't want to take birth again just to avoid middle school. Because getting on the school bus in the morning was nightmarish. I was one of the last stops, and I would get on the bus, and I'm like looking around for a seat in the front. And there was ever seat, you always look up, but that's that one seat way in the back. You had to walk through all those mean kids, And you knew something was going to happen. You're just like, duh, 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 duh. And then right when you got to the back, someone would like throw like a softball at your head or something like evil. So that's considered the result of bad karma, that you would get such treatment like that. But for this karma yogi, whether he gets good or bad situation, he's not affected by that. It's very hard to conceive of that. Not being affected by that. Padma patram ivambasa. He is just like a lotus flower. Just like a lotus flower, where that doesn't become wet, because there's like a little film on top of the leaf that the water just comes off. It doesn't actually moisten the leaf. So there's some film on the consciousness of this karma yogi that he does not become affected by material nature. He remains ever aloof. So he co-signs everything to Brahman, the material energy, and he is ever unaffected by it, remains ever situated. So 511, why does he continue to perform work if he's so enlightened? Kayena manasa buddhya kevala indriya api yogina karma kurvanti. Sangam taktva atma shuddhaye. Again, this word sangam taktva is coming. So the yogi is giving up sangam. Again, what does sangha mean? Attachment to?
Sangha?
Yeah, what does sangha mean?
Bad association.
Attachment to community.
No. I decided it means two things. Sangha means two things. What is the meaning? And just a quick pop quiz. Sangha means attachment to the fruit of the activity and attachment to the sense of agency. I'm the doer in this world. You understand? What does it mean, Sangha?
Attachment to doing this world.
And to the fruit of activity. You understand?
Sangha.
Sangam. So giving up Sangha, what does Sangha mean again? Bolo.
Giving up the fruit and the action.
Yes. Giving up the fruit in the sense of being the agent. Of being the agent. He acts only for Atma Shuddhaya, only for the purpose of purification of the Atma. Atma Shuddhaya here means he acts for becoming completely freed of the influences of false ego. He's quite freed already, but if he's acting in this world, it's only for the purpose of purification, from becoming more and more free from the encroachment created by the imposition of material energy in the form of ego. He's acting for purification. Kayena manasa buddhya, with his body, with his mind, and his intelligence, and his senses also. He acts only for this purpose. So if he acts in the world, he's acting only for this purpose. Atma Shuddhaya. Atma Shuddhaya means for the purpose of purification of the Atma.
Is it the opposite of Sangha?
Is it the opposite of Sangha?
Kind of, it's like different motivating forces.
Yeah, right. Because the motivating force for acting in this world is usually attachment to the fruit and an attachment to the sense that I'm the doer, that everything depends on me for me to enjoy in life. Actually, if that was true, you would never suffer. Because you don't want to bring suffering to yourself, right? So if you were the controller, you would never suffer. So the fact that you suffer me, that is solid evidence that you are not the controller, and yet you still feel that you can control your destiny. So that is our thinking. So that is usually the motivating factor.
What does seeking? What's that word again?
Atma Shuddhaya. Shuddhaya. Yeah, you can see verse 5:11. Atma Shuddhaya. That means you try to act to become free from the encroachment of ego. Because it is ego that makes you think, I'm the doer and I'm the enjoyer. You are neither the doer nor are you enjoying very much. You're only trying for enjoyment. You're not actually enjoying. It's like chasing a mirage in the desert. You know, you never actually catch it. And if you do, you just eat sand. So no one is enjoying this world. Most of the people are not enjoying. They're just trying for enjoyment. And mostly suffering. So ego promotes that. So Atma Shuddhaya means becoming free from this encroachment of ego, this imposition of the ego. For this reason, he acts. I'll take one more verse here. So Krishna, that's not a concluding statement. Krishna now juxtaposes this enlightened person next to the rest of us. Yukta karma palam taktva shantam apnoti naishtikam. So yukta means one who is kind of like linked or in communion with the reality. Karma palam taktva, he gives up the fruits of his activities. Shantam apnoti naishtikam, and he attains steady or unflinching peace. This means he attains liberation or steady realization of his self. So that is the yukta, and then the opposite person, ayukta, one who is dislinked, not linked, or disconnected from the reality. Kama karena. Why is he acting? Because of kama, some lesser desire to fill. Pale sakto, he's attached to the fruit of the activity. He is bound. So he just juxtaposes the two. The karma yogi who's without this attachment for the fruit, he attains eternal peace. And the one who is ayukta, not linked to this awareness of the reality, acting for lust and being attached to the fruit, he remains bound up. So those are the two broad options. You can be bound or you can be free. What do you want to do? You want to be free or you want to be bound? Here in the Western world, everyone loves to talk about freedom, but who is free? You ask them to give up Instagram, they can't do it for 5 minutes also. So where is the freedom? They say close down the Facebook, but you cannot. You're like, the mind is like, what you doing, bro? Stop. Or sometimes you see this people like they deactivate their Facebook and then 2 weeks later it's up again. Where is the freedom? Don't look at your phone for an hour and you can't do it. Where is the freedom? Everyone's talking about freedom, but where is the freedom? Don't look at naughty things on the computer past 10 o'clock at night. We cannot stop. Where is the freedom? So everyone's talking about freedom, but who is free? Everyone is bound, actually. There's no freedom. So if you want to be free, you have to follow karma yoga in context, bhakti yoga really, but you have to follow some actual discipline of becoming free. Otherwise, you are enslaved by the imposition of the body, enslaved by your mind that thinks in this way or that way. There's a story there of saints, like Haridas Thakur, I always have to tell a story. He was being beat by executioners in 22 marketplaces. And he was chanting Hare Krishna. He was ecstatic. They beat him so hard in one marketplace, it says no one survived even one beating, one flogging, even in one marketplace. In 22 marketplaces, they beat him like this. And the whole time, he was just Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Just chanting Hare Krishna, like jolly and very nice. And so the executioners themselves got bewildered. Like, how is this person? Because he was free from the imposition of his body. You can't even imagine such awareness, how it would be possible. So he didn't even feel any bad feelings for the executioners or anything. If someone like slaps you, you're gonna have some negative feelings towards them for a long. Especially if they cut you off. When I'm driving a car, that's why I don't like driving. When someone cut me off when I'm driving, I would just imagine myself with one of those big snow machines, like driving behind their car, like lifting the car up and flipping it over. And I would feel greatly ecstatic inside, meditating in that way, just because he cut me off. Why? Because I'm not free from the imposition of my body and mind, so I got disturbed. Haridas Thakur free from the imposition, so he had no negative feelings towards these guys. Afterwards, they said, Haridas, if we don't kill you, then we will be killed. So Haridas said, okay, no problem. So then he went into samadhi and it looked like he died out of thinking of the welfare of these persons who were just flogging him like anything. So that is freedom. That is freedom. Someone slaps you or cuts you off and you are free to not be disturbed. That is actually freedom. If someone cuts you off or calls you a bad name in public and embarrasses you and you hate them for that, where is freedom? So you have two options, to be free or to be bound. Do free people exist? That's a very good question based on this discussing. Do free people exist? Yes. Are they few in number? Yes.
In New York.
Huh?
In New York City.
Do free people exist in New York City? Probably. There are probably a few. But you cannot see with your eyes. It's not so easy to catch with the eye. With the eye, they look like a normal person. You'll not be able to tell also.
In this building, probably.
Probably, maybe one or two, maybe. But a free person is very. So here Krishna is saying, if you are yukta, you can become free, or you will be bound. So we'll stop there for now. I'll finish the section next time. We have 3 more verses of this section, but I'll stop there for now. Are there any final thoughts or questions? Otherwise, you can share one or two reflections before we end the class. You are free, or you are bound person? Bound. You are free. So very bound.
I like to point
David, you are free.
Yeah, relatively.
Relatively.
As long as I follow good chanting and learn about the Gita and stuff like that.
Very good answer.
Yeah. But I know freedom is just knowing that basically we're controlled by the three gunas.
That's the beginning.
And we devote our life to the Lord so that in our devotion, basically we become free of reaction.
Yes.
And that's the path.
Nice. Yes. Daniel, you want to
Yeah.
share some
But
praise?
it's all about Krishna
Yes.
and devotion.
Yes.
I like your point on how you cannot enjoy if you don't have control.
Yes. And you can't control unless you have power.
Yeah.
That's why you want to make more money. That's always at the root of it. And you see so many devotees also, they have more than enough money. Why do they want more money? I also wonder. So they can live in the city. Why you want to live in the city? The city is demonic. Where are you going to live? Where are you going to go out of the city? They say something nice. That's with devotee association. Like, bro, we see you once a month. Why you want to live? Because we're not free. We're forced to act in this way. Unless you take serious your spiritual path, you will be forced.
And this power that you talk about that comes from control, this isn't the type of contaminated power. It's more like Shakti or something.
The power that comes for control.
For control.
No, not a material. Power means you want money so you can get power to control.
I was thinking when you say you cannot actually enjoy
You control, yes.
So in order to truly enjoy them, we have control. Is that what you're saying?
To enjoy material nature.
You were just talking about material.
Yeah, material. If you want to enjoy on the spiritual platform, then you have to become free.
I didn't know control your sense.
Free means you have to be your awareness. Right now, following this picture, our awareness is invested in this thing. That means you're not free. But if you can direct, these lines represent the awareness invested in nature. If you can direct the awareness back this way towards your actual self. So now this is awareness going back towards the self. Does that make sense? If you can redirect awareness back towards the self, and ultimately Krishna, the self of the self. This is Krishna. He's the self of the self. He's interior to the self. So this is the devotional path. We direct our awareness towards Krishna. Then you'll be free. And whatever's going on over here, however good, however bad, can cause no disturbance for such a person. That's why you can hear prayers like the Kumars. I was mentioning this prayer the other day. The Kumars are praying, let me go to hell also, as long as my consciousness can be, as long as my consciousness, like a bumblebee, can float around, just take shelter of your lotus feet. Let me be in hell also. I mean, hell is out of disturbance if my consciousness is fixed on you. Or Prahlad Maharaj saying, I'm not at all disturbed in this world, even though he's being persecuted like anything, because of my consciousness absorbed in you. That is freedom. Otherwise, if awareness is invested in this, then you are bound. There's no question of freedom. Even if you have Hiranyakashipu, he controlled the whole universe. That's a high level of control. It was saying the oceans, we were hearing the oceans, and we're just giving all the minerals because they were so afraid of him. He had a high level of control, but he was not a free person. So much so that when he discovered that his son was a devotee, all that control meant nothing to him. He was devastated. Can you imagine? You control the whole Earth planet, and just because your son is likes the person that you don't like, then you feel morose. He's not a free person. But Prahlad Maharaj was a free person. He was being persecuted by his father in over 1,000 ways. His father tried to murder him. And he was not at all disturbed. So that if you want to really enjoy it, then you have to direct awareness back towards yourself and ultimately towards God. Then you really enjoy. That is called Atmarama. One who is taking pleasure in the self and ultimately in the self of Krishna. Atmarama. Atma Arama. The one who derives pleasure from his own Atman, or from Krishna. So for that, there doesn't need to be control also. The world can be going on its own way. He relinquishes that idea. That is freedom. Imagine someone calls you a really funny thing and it embarrasses you and everyone starts laughing. That's like an unforgivable offense. Yeah, imagine someone does that and you have the freedom to not be disturbed and not to feel any animosity. Imagine someone tries to kill you and you have the freedom to not feel animosity towards that person. That's how free you are. You hear something? Ambarish Maharaj, someone, he drank some water and one yogi said, you drank the water without offering me food first. So he tried to kill Ambarish Maharaj for that. Can you imagine? It's so petty. You drink a little bit of water to break your fast, and the yogi is like, what is this nonsense? You didn't serve him. Pulled out his sikha, and made one fire apparition, it's like demon, to kill Ambarish Maharaj. And Ambarish Maharaj had the freedom to not be disturbed by that. That's when they do those on the YouTube videos, they do that thug life where the glasses come on the person. That's really amazing. You have the freedom to not be disturbed. So this is the goal of Krishna consciousness also. The goal of Krishna consciousness is freedom. Prabhupada writes that in one purport in the Srimad Bhagavatam. I'll just read it to you, then I'll stop here. Everyone always talking is freedom, but who is free? So Prabhupada mentions about this. Very nice. First canto, chapter 2. I think it's verse number 6 or 7. Let me see. I like the language because it sounds kind of new agey, so it's just so uncharacteristic of Prabhupada. I'm not at least accustomed to hearing that language. It's interesting. But it's powerful also. Okay, I think it's this one. Yes. The need of the spirit soul is that he wants to get out of the limited sphere of material bondage and fulfill his desire for complete freedom. He wants to get out of the covered walls of the greater universe. He wants to see the free light and spirit. That complete freedom is achieved when he meets the complete spirit, the personality of Godhead. And then he goes on, very much like that statement. So if you want complete freedom, you got to follow the right path. That path is, of course, we say Bhakti Yoga. Also here Krishna's talking Karma Yoga. So we'll stop there. Om Tat Sat. We'll finish this section on Monday.